DOMS IPO, the second largest pencil maker in India. An IPO worth 1,200 crores is in the offing.
That's right, Shweta. And this, of course, has been reported by the Mint newspaper this morning. An exclusive byline story. So, from what I read, I think a stationery maker, one of the late entrants in a fairly saturated market, going in for an IPO to raise 1,200 crore rupees to actually set up not just India's, but the region's, Asia Pacific region's largest single location manufacturing unit. And this, of course, the company is raising this and has been in existence in partnership with Italy's FILA brand. Now, interestingly, when we grew up, we had the likes of Natraj and Apsara and Camlin pencils, and then you had some Chinese brands also, with those mechanical pencils coming in. But over the last 5-6 years or so, DOMS has actually taken this industry by storm. And any retailer you go to, any piece of stationery you want to pick up, the obvious choice happens to be DOMS. And it's not that it is priced significantly lower. In fact, it sells at a premium as opposed to a Natraj or Apsara, which incidentally still own the lion's share of the market. But overall, if you look at it, DOMS is a company which is making as many as 6.5 million pencils a day. And it's got a fairly strong distribution channel through which these pencils are hitting practically every stationery shop in the country. And it really got a fillip back in 2020, 2021, where the focus on children's education and studying from home became the real concern of parents, and it became an involved buying rather than children picking up stationery from the school's tuck shop. So it became an involved buying where parents went and bought these slightly more premium pencils as opposed to perhaps the age-old Natraj and Apsara. And we've seen volume of both sales as well as revenue grow significantly for DOMS. So now DOMS looking at coming with 1,200 crore rupees of IPO, worth of IPO, of which I think the entire 1,200 crore rupees is likely to be invested into that manufacturing plant that needs to be set up. And incidentally, that is exactly what its revenue for 2023 was. Its revenue for 2023 was 1,212 crore rupees. And it's 1 year worth of revenue or funding that they want to now try and seek from the market to redeploy into manufacturing.
Right. For an average person out there, it seems a little bit counterintuitive. At a time when people, or children largely, were sitting at home in front of their laptops, one would assume that the sales of stationery will go down as opposed to sales of stationery picking up. How do you really explain this?
Right. So I think sales of laptops and internet services and webcams and microphones and headphones also went up.
Yes.
But children were exposed to the laptop for not more than 4 hours, 5 hours in a day. The rest of the time for doodling, for sketching, for writing cards and writing letters and doing their assignments, a lot of it continued to be, especially for the younger children, continued to be paper and pencil.
Right.
So I think paper stocks would also have gone up. You would have possibly seen even diaries and notebooks pick up. But DOMS was able to capture this market significantly and really go ahead and make its presence felt. And it came from the back. It's a company that does not have a legacy in India. It's not a brand that has been captured in publications or its management interviewed, because it just came out of nowhere and has scripted the success story for itself, pretty much unerasable, if I could say, because it's really gone down deep into the roots of the Indian education system.
Since we are on education system, this is something very interesting, and perhaps from a personal point of view, someone once said around me, and I think I quite agreed with that. You have a young daughter, I think you'll agree with that. I think people can stop every kind of spending if need be, but they will never stop spending, specifically in India, on education, which is a sure shot formula for success. If you want to do a business in education, be it making your stationery, to setting up an educational center, to providing some sort of tuition services, that will never be halted, no matter what.
I think, Shweta, it's fair to say that education is as essential services go.
Yes.
So you can't really...
Specifically for Indian parents, I mean, I think it becomes... I mean, I'm sorry, I may not come from a position of facts here,
Yeah.
but it appears from what we hear around us that it's very imperative. Everything else takes a back seat, but education continues to be a driving factor.
Right. So I think, roti, kapda, makan, and then of course there is healthcare and education.
That is
right.
correct.
You definitely need clothes to wear, a roof to live under, food to eat. The three most basic essential requirements for survival, followed only by education and healthcare. Healthcare and education in that order, if you were to peg it, because obviously, you need to be healthy to be educated or seek education as well. But since you mentioned a recession-proof industry, many industry watchers also say that there is another recession-proof industry, which happens to be alcohol. So when you're happy, you drink, and when you're sad, you drink. So I think not as essential, but pretty much as recession-proof happens to be the alcohol industry.
And
but
the
yeah, that
marriage,
is in lighter. That's in lighter vein.
And the marriage industry.
And the marriage industry perhaps as well. But
Right.
education and healthcare obviously have seen a great boost during the pandemic. I think parents got time to get involved with their children. They got time to actually do a deep dive into what their children are studying, how well they are coping up with the pressures, because you could be privy to what is happening inside the digital classroom, unlike a physical classroom. But yeah, coming back to the story of a pencil maker, of a stationery maker, setting up its IPO and filing papers for raising 1,200 crore rupees for the market. I think that is definitely an interesting sector which is heating up and is definitely scripting history as far as Indian education and Indian IPOs go.
Absolutely.